In a small, crowded town, where dreams often felt too big for the narrow streets, there lived a quiet young boy named Alex. He wasn't known for anything special. He wasn't the smartest student in class. He wasn't the strongest on the field. And he didn't have any talent that made people stop and notice him. In fact, most days, it felt like he didn't exist at all. At school, Alex always sat at the back of the classroom, hoping not to be called, not because he didn't care, but because he believed no one expected anything from him anyway. When the teacher asked questions, hands would rise confidently around the room, but Alex would stay silent, afraid of being wrong, afraid of being laughed at. When teams were picked for games, his name was always the last one mentioned, and sometimes it wasn't mentioned at all until someone reluctantly chose him. What hurt Alex the most wasn't just being ignored by strangers, it was the quiet disappointment from people closest to him. "You need to be realistic," they would say. "Not everyone is meant to succeed." Some would even laugh gently and tell him to stop dreaming so big. Over time, those words became louder than his own thoughts. He began to believe them. He stopped raising his hand in class. He stopped trying new things. He stopped imagining a better future. Slowly, without realizing it, Alex started becoming exactly what everyone expected him to be: someone ordinary, someone invisible, someone who would never achieve anything meaningful. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Life became a routine of silence and self-doubt. Alex would wake up, go through the same motions, and return home feeling empty. There was no excitement, no purpose, just the quiet acceptance that maybe this was all his life would ever be. But one night, something unusual happened. Sitting alone in his small room, with nothing but his thoughts surrounding him, Alex found himself staring at his reflection in the mirror. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, quietly, almost as if he was afraid of hearing the answer, he asked himself a simple question: "Is this really who I am?" That question echoed in his mind. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't hearing the voices of others, he was hearing his own. And deep inside, beneath all the doubt and fear, there was something still alive. A small spark. It wasn't confidence, not yet. It wasn't strength either. It was just a thought, fragile but powerful. What if they're wrong? The next morning, Alex did something different. He woke up earlier than usual. There was no big plan, no dramatic change, just a quiet decision to try again. He started small. He picked up a book and read a few pages. He practiced a skill he had once given up on. He paid more attention in class. It didn't feel like much, and honestly, no one noticed. The world around him stayed exactly the same. People still ignored him. They still overlooked him. Some even laughed when they saw him trying again. But this time, something inside Alex had changed. He didn't stop. Days passed, and Alex kept going. He didn't rush. He didn't expect quick results. Every day, he focused on doing just a little more than yesterday. One more page, one more hour, one more attempt. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, without any noise or attention, Alex began to improve. He became more focused, more disciplined, and more patient. While others spent their time talking, complaining, or wasting hours, Alex was quietly building himself, piece by piece. There were still difficult days, days when he felt tired, when doubt tried to return, when it seemed like nothing was changing. But whenever he felt like giving up, he remembered that question: what if they're wrong? And that was enough to keep him going. Not fast, not perfectly, but consistently. Then one day, something unexpected happened. A teacher noticed him. It wasn't a big moment, just a small recognition of his effort. But for Alex, it meant everything. Soon after, a classmate asked for his help. Then another. Slowly, the same people who once ignored him began to see him differently. His name started to be mentioned, not as an afterthought, but with respect. Years passed. And Alex was no longer the invisible boy sitting in the back of the room. He had grown into someone confident, capable, and strong. He achieved things that people once said were impossible for him. He built a life that others admired. The same people who once doubted him now asked him for advice. The same voices that told him to be realistic were now telling his story as an example of success. But for Alex, the greatest victory wasn't the success, the recognition, or the respect. It was something much deeper. It was the moment he chose to believe in himself when no one else did. It was the decision to keep going when everything around him told him to stop. He didn't succeed because he was the most talented or the most gifted. He succeeded because he refused to give up on himself. In the end, Alex realized something powerful. Being ignored is not the end of your story. Being doubted is not your limit. Sometimes, it's the beginning of something greater, because all it takes is one person to believe in you. And that person doesn't have to be anyone else. It just has to be you.